that Bernard's the type. I mean, normally he'd really keep his word, but, you know, he's been under a lot of pressure, and I think now that I've got a clear advantage over him, I think he really will support me 100%.
Back here at our base of operations this Sunday evening, the French Alps, where we feed you our program via satellite. The riders have long since retired for the evening, Greg LeMond with his historic yellow jersey tucked away in his hotel room drawer. But the race is not over for Greg LeMond or the other riders, because upcoming this week, two of the most torturous stages so far, 2 more days through the French Alps. The week ends up with a glittering ride down the Champs-Élysées for the man who can win the 1986 Tour de France. Will Greg LeMond be able to hang on to his first yellow jersey? Will Bernard Hinault be able to take it away from him and win his historic 6th? We'll have it all for you next Sunday on CBS Sports Sunday. For now, I'm John Tesh. So long from the French Alps.
Greg LeMond protects his lead in a race against all odds. His wife, his family, caught up in a firestorm called the Tour de France. LeMond's teammate, once his friend, Bernard Hinault, is now the American's worst nightmare. The man who owns them both, with his hand firmly on the throttle of a team ready to explode. An angry young man from America has grabbed hold of a race that will not let him go. This is a race that has for 83 years brought the world's very best to meet the test of the Tour de France. Dressed in yellow for the first time in history, an American carries cycling's prized possession on his back. Greg LeMond has arrived and is beating the Europeans at their game. But riding in his way is a man who had pledged to help him win his first tour. 5-time winner Bernard Hinault has let it be known he is off in search of a record 6th victory. Since it all began July 4th, their journey has taken them all over France's most beautiful countryside. 2,525 miles for 24 days. .210 riders, the largest field in history, and always at the front, the 2 men who have shaped the race with their own private battle. Bernard Hinault and Greg LeMond have taken aim at one another in this high-speed war on bicycles. It's the Frenchman and the American who have turned this race to catch them into a tangled mess of bodies and bikes. Today, they crown the champion of the Tour de France. Hello, everyone. I'm John Tesh, along with Phil Liggett, and welcome to the Tour de France bike race. In a little while, this great race will make its finish right here along Europe's most glamorous avenue, the Champs-Élysées. And Phil, it began 23 days ago, and through it all, it really has been a battle between the Frenchman and the American, Hinault and LeMond.
John, it most certainly has. If you can remember, over 3 weeks ago, 210 riders, a record field, set out. Today, almost 40% of those riders have given up. But all the time, the 2 principal players have been Greg LeMond and Bernard Hinault. And if you can cast your mind back a year ago, that was where the rivalry and the battle really began, in the mountains of France 12 months back. And this has been one of the greatest Tour de France's because of 2 of the world's greatest cyclists.
And one of them lives in Quessoy, France, in the heart of Brittany. Home for Bernard Hinault and his family. That is when Papa isn't off winning the world's most prestigious bike race.
Just like that.
Kortrijk, Belgium, home for American Greg LeMond and his family, who have moved from Nevada so LeMond can train and race in Europe with the best. These are 2 men as different as red and white. Hinault relaxes in his wine cellar, firmly ensconced in the land of his ancestors. Le Mans makes his life as an expatriate American, longing to return his family to the shores of America, but committed to a European sport that insists he raise his family here in Europe. The face of the Badger. It was a name given to Hinault years ago for his tenacity. Beware, American. The Badger is quiet only at home.
The two family men soon faced their reality when the tour set off from the Paris suburbs on July the 4th. A record entry of 210 riders made their way due north towards the coastline of Calais and the nearest point to England. And even on these opening flat stages, Hinault was never content to watch. He always felt the urge to attack. There were two reasons. The route was heading towards his home in Brittany, and he wanted to tire the specialist climbers over the roads they hated the most. Greg LeMond knew he had to stay close to his friend, or was it a rival, right from the start? And at this early stage, LeMond wasn't sure of Hinault's intention. The opening week of the 2,500 miles race followed the northern coastline through Normandy, where Americans have come before on less happy occasion. Then the route plunged south through the vineyards. Unable to conceal it any longer, Hinault was receiving treatment for an eye infection caused by the dust of the countryside. Would it hinder his performance? His rivals would soon know. LeMond was also ill with diarrhea, and he'd need to be in top condition if he was to conquer the mountains that were coming closer with every pedal turn. And as the race went on through the vineyards and Bayonne, the Pyrenees were in sight. The race was about to begin. And Hinault, in company with Spain's Pedro Delgado, entered the Pyrenees with the intention of breaking everyone's spirit. On the road to Pau, he led by 3 miles. On this first day in the mountains, LeMond was already confused like everyone else, but he didn't know what Hinault was planning. In Pau, Hinault was the leader by a massive 5.5 minutes. Was the race already over? LeMond's face distraught. This attack by Hinault had not been expected. Was Hinault a teammate or a rival? But the very next day, LeMond took back 4 of the 5 minutes. The impossible achieved. After the Pyrenees, the race moved on towards the Alps and the next battleground between two men who both wanted to win the race. Both appeared equal. But on the very first day, exactly a week ago, Greg LeMond vented his fury on a man who has forced him to prove he is the best. LeMond was drawn by the thought of a yellow jersey. And suffering visibly, the Badger was being forced back into his corner. At last, history was made. After 83 years of the Tour de France, an American is dressed in yellow. And LeMond had recovered 8 minutes in less than a week from Hinault to do it.
And so it was last Sunday that Greg LeMond stood in the yellow jersey. But still, one more week of racing remaining through the Alps and a crucial time trial. We'll be back with more of our coverage of the Tour de France in a moment.
Character. Even nobility, if you like. It should be known as the best of its kind. And most of all, a light beer should be as great as its namesake. That's why there's Bud Light. The light beer with the first name and taste. Everything else is just a light.
Hinault in the sunglasses, Greg LeMond behind him, and on the left, the boss. His name is Bernard Tapie, and he is the man responsible for the La Vie Claire Dream Team of cycling, which, by the way, cost $3 million to run this year. La Vie Claire, the clean life, the name given Tapie's chain of health food stores. In a society where white bread, wine, and sauces extraordinaire dominate the dinner table, Tapie's investment in the health food enterprise was a bold one. But then so were the investments in the other 44 companies he owns. So why not write a book about it all? Winning. And why not star in your own TV commercials? Tapie, vanquishing all those who would challenge. And a symbol, really, of the new France.
Mais qu'est-ce qui vous fait marcher?
Moi? Je
Ça marche à la Vendée. Alcaline Vendée, plus 40% de durée.
It's not only batteries that keep the 41-year-old Tapie marching to the music of profit and gain. Tapie is France's true success story. And he quite often is in the news, on the news, at night. This is the Lee Iacocca of France, if you will. And the guy is everywhere. Just look out your window. Especially during the Tour de France. When Tapie shows up, you can forget Hinault and Le Mans. These folks want a piece of the guy who's bought them both. It was Tapie who brought Le Mans and Hinault together. What a perfect match. The talented young American and the legendary Frenchman. Last year, Tapie's Franco-American cycling tandem had the press in a photo-opportunistic frenzy. Smiles all around, most of the time anyway. Here at the Tour, France's Lee Iacocca becomes cycling's George Steinbrenner, master of the bike racing universe. Planning, scrutinizing, orchestrating. Nothing escapes Tapie's glance. And no one misses a chance to watch the man who has done much to shape the modern-day Tour de France with his partner par excellence, Bernard Hinault. Involved? Yes, the boss gets involved. And in the cycling world, that means sticking your head out of a moving vehicle to shout at your coach. It's the powerful Tapie who prides himself on putting together this French team led by Bernard Hinault. For in the minds of the French, Hinault will always be number one, no matter who rides on his team. And where has that left Greg LeMond?
If I want to be frank, I probably should have never come on La Vie Claire because I feel I'm too close to Bernard Hinault, too close to his strength, that I end up always having to take the second position, and it's my fault.
Well, during the Tour, Tapie was asked on the news if it wouldn't be better for Le Mans to win the Tour so Tapie could get added business exposure in the States.
Hinault est beaucoup plus connu que Greg LeMond aux États-Unis. Par conséquent, ça serait mieux pour nous sur le marché américain si c'était Hinault qui gagnait.
It would be better for our American market if Hinault wins. Well, the time for arguments is over. Here in the Alps, there will soon be enough more important questions answered in the Tour de France. It's day 18 and time for the race to Alpe d'Huez. Bernard Tapie is on hand. It's clear that if Bernard Hinault is going to make his move on Le Mans, it will have to come here. Hinault has two choices: attack Greg LeMond or help him keep his yellow jersey. The American has spent his first full night in the yellow jersey, and he would like some team support.
I'm hoping that I'll have some support from him and in the coming days, because I feel like in the mountaintop finishes I'm riding stronger than he is, and I think I should maybe take another minute out of him today. I'm thinking that.
Actually, the man in second place to Le Mans in the overall standings is Switzerland's Urs Zimmermann. Zimmermann is 2.5 minutes behind Greg, and Hinault is another 20 seconds back. Another of the top riders is Spain's Pedro Delgado, but the pace of the favorites has put him fully 8 minutes behind. Check-in time for this crucial trip into the Alps, and for the first time ever, the man to beat is an American.